evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 9th, 2019 Caribou City Council meeting. Roll call shows that all councilors are present and accounted for. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, public forum. Does anyone wish to speak to the council from the public? Hearing none. Thank you. Number 4, City Council minutes, November 25th, 2019. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Moved by Jones, seconded by Jody to accept the November 25th, 2019 regular City Council meeting. Is there any questions or additions or subtractions from the main council? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Number 5, recognition. Recognition of the planning board members who are retiring after some years, many years of hard work. Phil Sear, Phil McDonough III, and Todd Pelletier.
Mayor, tonight, Mr. Pelletier and McDonough were not able to attend, but Mr. Sear is here tonight. Definitely would like to recognize him.
Okay. I would like to say, first of all, I can't think of I don't know how to word this, but a board that has importance to the city, but it's also a board that gets very little gratitude. And I appreciate people wanting to be on boards, and I especially appreciate the people that have been on this board, and do not take it lightly. Phil, I want to thank you very much for your service to our community. Take a year off, go flying, and come on back again in a little while. As I said, it's not a very recognizable board, and but it's something that needs to be done. Do you have anything that you would like to bestow upon our?
I just want to say that it's a team effort. It's a team effort that involves the city staff and several people, Tom included, has been there. I think some people view it as training for the city council, but it's a task that just carries on and on and on. So, thank you for the recognition.
Well, thank you very much. We have a certificate of appreciation that is suitable for framing. And in my quest, thank you. We're going to get a picture.
Yep, okay.
Get into the paper.
Pull the head a little so we're not, Dennis is like.
Item number 6. We have no public hearing. Item number 7, liquor license renewal for the American Legion located on 67 Sweden Street. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved by Hugh, seconded by Tom to approve the renewal of the American Legion renewal liquor license. Any questions or comments from the council? Any issues?
Nothing here, no issues.
Okay.
Signed off by the three.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 7B, accepting a bid for tax acquired property located at 7 Washington Street, map 2848, block 48. Dennis, could you give us a brief history, please?
Mayor and council, this is a piece of property that was tax acquired actually a couple of years ago. So it's been on our open bid list for 2 years. And we received a bid this year for the minimum requested bid amount of $17,700. The current taxes owed on the property plus is roughly $6,000 plus interest and fees. And so we would recommend that the council accept that bid amount for the $17,700, and we'll be able to pay off those taxes on the city's books.
Any questions or comments to the city manager on this agenda item? Jody?
It's been a while since we had property that's gone for more than what was owed for. Where is that going to show in the revenue line? Is it going to go under blight and slum removal, or how does it?
Sale of city property.
Okay.
Move to accept the bid.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Jody to accept the bid of the tax acquired property located at 7 Washington Street, map 28, block 48. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Number 8, old business. Discussion regarding the drafted 2020 municipal budget. In November 12th, we were presented a budget draft prepared by the city administration. At the next meeting, we had a council workshop. Would have been the 19th. We had, and a consensus was taken to have the administration come back to us with a budget that reflected no mill increase.
From the city side.
From the city side, correct. No increase in the capital expenditures, and no use of one-time funds.
Right.
Of which you did then on, well, I should have wrote these dates down, the 26th. No, 27th, that was a holiday, the 26th. I'm confused. You know what I mean?
Right.
The last city
Yeah.
council meeting.
Yes,
25th.
25th? Okay. Of which you did. At that time, questions were asked, or could have been asked, about how these numbers were derived. Not the philosophy on the numbers, but the numbers as they were derived. In my quest to try to make this move as smooth as I could, or as we could, with a diverse group of people, I asked that we would come back tonight and consider voting for the budget that you came back with on the 25th. If there was any amendments that any of you did, in my world, I feel the administration did their job. You did what council asked. Now it's in the hands of the council. And so I asked the council, and or any other councilors, if they had any amendments that they would like to make this budget, to this budget, prior to us voting on it. And I asked that these amendments be sent to you or to the other council member, and that we would list them here tonight. So, the procedure that I have thought about was, we'll start with anybody that would like to make an amendment to the budget. guess you wanna go down through them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, let's go down through them. Okay, first one was Counselor Martin and Gahn. We asked that the council would consider an additional $46,000 added to the contribution line to support the Aroostook Area Agency on Aging. Chair will entertain a motion.
4,600,
4,600, what did I say?
46,000.
No, that would have been an error.
Slight one, huh?
No.
Good catch.
That would have been,
I'd like to make a motion to contribute $4,600 to the Aroostook Area Agency on Aging, since we get a whole lot more than that in services from them.
Second.
moved by Dave, seconded by Hugh to add $4,600. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to 1, and 1 opposed. 6 to 1. Okay, item number 2. Counselor Martin asks for an additional $50,000 for the establishing a senior tax credit program. Chair will entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, but I'd like to comment first that in November of 2018, there was a non-binding referendum for the public to vote on to create such a program, and it stated that the program would probably cost up to $150,000 and would increase taxes by $500,000. And the public supported that, something like 57% to 43%. And then in last year's budget, it was cut down to $50,000. That's 1/7 of a mil. So I think the public supports it. The poorest of our seniors need the help. So I'd like to make a motion to add $50,000 to establish a senior tax credit program.
Motion's been made to add an additional $50,000. Is there a second? I will second it. I have, okay. Moved by Dave, seconded by me. Any comments or questions? Joan?
I would like to comment because I would like to at least explain why I would not vote for it, only because in or about February, the state is sending back $100 per household for anybody who qualified for the Homestead Exemption Act, and next year the Homestead Exemption Act is going up another $5,000 towards the property taxes. So I think that's help in and of itself right there, so I don't feel that at this time we should be increasing the budget by that amount.
Any other comments or questions? I'm going to vote in favor of this. I've gone both ways on this, but I guess I'd like to see what a program would look like, and $50,000 isn't going to make or break our budget at this particular point. I'm not saying I'm necessarily, I'd just like to see what the program looked like. I'd like to see the particulars of it. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? 3 to 4, it failed. Thank you very much. Number 3, Counselor Dawn, a reduction of $8,000 to the stipend paid to the Public Works Director, Dave Willett, for additional service rendered at the airport. Chair will entertain a motion. Well, I'll make a motion. I'll make the motion. Okay. there a second? Jody. Moved by Mark, seconded by Jody to remove $8,000. Any comments or questions?
Have we already been paying Dave this money already
In this year,
in this year?
yes,
That was approved by you.
that was approved in the budget this last year by the council.
So last year's council approved this.
Yes.
Did any of last
But I-
year's?
Well, I would
No.
say that with the anticipation that we were going to have an FBO partially through the year. And so this amount of money is for a full year worth of stipend for Dave's services, whereas in this year's current budget, it was not that full amount because we thought we'd have an FBO on site much sooner than we had.
This line item has grown $7,500 in this budget over last year's budget.
Part of that was moving it out of one line in the budget to where it should have been reflected in the budget. But the total airport budget included this amount for Dave's stipend.
My whole problem, my issue with this subject is we talked about first we plow the roads, then we do the sidewalks, then we do the parking lots, snow removal, then we do the fire hydrants. We already have been grievances because we, by our own fire department, to us, because we haven't been cleaning the fire hydrants on time. And I'm having a struggle if we're not doing the tasks that you would think a traditional public works director should do. If we're not accomplishing those tasks and we're running into why would we expand the duties of this department? And if someone said, well, we're gonna put in a little extra money to do fire hydrants, that's a point of discussion. But this is branching out, and this is investing into what I would consider a non-essential department to this city. It's my personal belief. We have fire, police, public. We have so many other things that we have to get into the weeds with. We don't need to grow. I will say this, when I found, and this is a sore subject with me, and I apologize for being long-winded. It's not easy. Joan has voted on some real tough issues that you would think, well, what's that? But she has a philosophy. My philosophy is this city's we're in a financial hole. We're trying to figure out how to get out. And the first thing you do is stop digging. I have voted no raises for the police department. I voted no raises for the ambulance department. And Public Works is coming up. Guess how I'm gonna vote on that. And it's not easy putting your head on your pillow and sleeping at night not to give people raises. But I do it. Why would then I then turn around and think the philosophy is good to give someone an $8,000 raise? I just can't do it. So that's why I have submitted this and have put it on to the amendment agenda. Moved and seconded. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Oh, Joan.
I don't believe this is an $8,000 raise. It's been in the budget, just different lines like the manager said. Also, whether we agree as to whether the airport is essential, non-essential, should it be there, should it not be there, as long as it is, I really believe that we need Dave Willett to be continuing to do these duties, which are posting the NOTAMs. If the airport closes and the planes can't come in, the avgas, the fuel up there needs to be checked for water. These are things that could affect liability issues with the airport, with the city, should they not be properly done. And it's my understanding that he needs special training and certification in order to do this. So if you take this away, and he's on call virtually pretty much 24/7, and if you take this away, then what's going to happen with the airport if you can't post the NOTAMs or you don't check the gas? So I think this is essential, and maybe the biggest issue is the airport itself. That's why I feel that it should stay in the budget at this point.
Thank you. Dave?
I agree with Joe.
Tony?
I just have just one simple thing to add is that, you know, I'm glad Dave's up there doing that work, but we also have a lot of other department heads that do a lot more. Not a lot more than Dave. They all do equally, but they do more and they don't get paid for it. I feel that the airport is a very important part of this town, and I feel that it's got a bright future. Now that we all thought that we would have an FBO, and it didn't happen. I don't like making plans into the future not knowing what's going to happen. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but we've got to be a little smarter about this, and it's got to happen. So I think that we can do it for a lot less than that. And like I said, there's plenty of other department heads that do stuff for the city and don't ask for money and aren't given any money for doing that. They just understand it's part of the job. So, and I know Dave does a wonderful job. I've seen what him and the Public Works have done up there. But again, this is about trying to figure out where we're going to find dollars and cents, and I think if we really smart about this. I remember I was sitting here and Joan was sitting over there, and I said, geez, this is we need something up there. I don't think it's $8,000 worth, or now $9,000. You know, I see that $9,000 and I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, where'd that come from? I mean, granted, it's only $24 a day when you divide it out by 365. On the other hand, I can't support it. Sorry.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I just, you know, I agree with both sides. However, I understand that the requirements are critical, that they're met. And there are department heads that go above and beyond, but this is a completely outside of Public Works assignment. So I think that obviously, I'm assuming it's not a lump sum and it's prorated, and if another option comes up, then that would change. But while he is assuming the responsibilities, he would receive a partial stipend.
That's correct. And Mayor, if I might add to Joan's comment about, you know, these things are probably going to go away if the stipend goes away. They won't. They can't. While we have the airport under our control, we have to do these things, regardless of the stipend.
And I guess that's my problem. I don't know where it became our control. I know we own it, but I've heard it over the years. Somebody can rent it for $1 and they can keep all the money. Why do we have to run it? We don't have to run it. That's my point.
Right. And we advertised for somebody to come and take it off of our hands and do that, and we haven't had anybody express interest in it.
Are we still advertising?
We're still advertising, and we can push it out again and again and again.
And that would be the solution.
Right.
See?
Right.
But right now, we're projecting in the budget that the excise tax on the airplanes is $600 for next year. And I just have to, I just don't want this hole to be digging any deeper, that's all. And I just find that we're starting to get involved in owning and operating an airport. We have to own it, we just don't have to operate it. Okay.
So if we don't operate it, who do we owe how much money to whom?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I guess I said has to double something here, but what do we owe the FAA if we, FFA, what is it, FAA?
FAA. Yeah.
Last year, we went through the number crunching exercise. We would have to basically buy the airport from the FAA to get out completely from under them. So we'd look at what is the appraised value of the land itself. We also have to pay back a proportionate amount of all the money the FAA has spent on improvements in the airport. So the hangars that were built 2 years ago, we would have to pay back. You know, they look at every project on a 20-year life. And so we'd have to pay back 90% of the value of those hangars to the airport if we wanted to close it next year. The same thing with all the runway aprons expansions and the other hangars that we've done. We look at all of the past projects in the last 20 years that we've received money from and pay back a proportionate amount of those funds plus the land value to the FAA to be able to close it. And then we would be able to utilize that land however we deem fit or redeveloped or whatever. But last year we went through that number crunching exercise, and it was close to $5 million to actually close the airport.
Okay, and if I'm Dave Willett and I have these extra duties that are above and beyond public works, and I'm supposed to do them for nothing, I'm not doing them. So who's going to do them? You? I mean, who's going to do it? Can you force Dave Willett? No, I hope not. So who's going to do them?
As the airport manager, that would fall upon me, and I'd have to go get all the additional training that Dave's already got to,
Or delegate it.
or delegate it.
I apologize for interrupting, but I asked the question during the workshop session, do we have to plow that airport in the wintertime? And the answer was, no, we don't.
We don't.
We don't have to take, well, we still own it. Nobody says we have to plow it. No one says we have to sell fuel up there. That doesn't mean we have to give it back. Part of all this grant money come in had nothing to do with we guaranteed we would sell gas. We never guaranteed that we would plow that. I'm not saying we don't own it. So when you throw out a $5 million number, people go, oh, well, no.
No, right, and that was the question that was asked. But
Okay.
you're right. We don't have to plow the runways. We can say during the winter months, from December to March, it's closed. If that's the direction that the council wants to go, we could certainly say it's closed now.
And just to
We'll just
clarify,
pick up.
we're not preventing any pilot association from plowing that. I mean, for taking over the duties.
If there was a private group that wanted to come in and get all the trainings, and they can certify they have all of that in place, and they can do it,
And they could
certainly.
use our facilities, they could use our fuel tanks, but they would operate it. Okay.
So the FAA would be okay with us running the airport 8 months a year or 7? Is that, I mean, I don't think so.
It's up to the city as the managing or the owner of the airport to determine when it's okay to let people land there. And if we don't plow it, that's a non-safe condition, and we're not going to let people utilize the airport if it's in a non-safe condition. As far
But
as-
I have a hard time believing that the FAA would give us all this money over and over and over and have a non-usable airport. I don't know, but that's.
Ultimately, the FAA says if they want airports to make money, and they give airports money to try to develop in such a way that eventually they can be making money. That's why we got the money for the airport hangars recently. So we get rents coming in, helps offset costs. Eventually, the master plan is to have more hangars up there, not only city-owned, but privately owned, with the intent of eventually we're generating enough money and we have enough traffic up here that the FAA says, that's great, it supports aviation, it supports a great need in the region, and we're going to continue to throw money at it. If we don't plow in the wintertime, we stop seeing traffic, there's a situation that occurs that pilots just say, you know what, it's not worth being up there because they're not providing the services, we then lose potential based aircraft at the airport. The ramification is we then lose our $150,000 a year of funding to help build the airport and try to strengthen that as a public asset. So you're right. The FAA, they want to see that it's continuing to grow. They want to see that there's money being generated. If we stop some services and it makes it a less desirable airport to be at, that will be reflected in the based aircraft, and then the FAA could pull that funding from us.
Okay.
I just have one other comment, which would be, I think that at this point in time, the issue is whether or not we allowed to continue to pay Dave the stipend. What we do with the airport, what services we offer, might be a discussion for a later date, keeping in mind that we have people up there who have rented hangars and expect to be able to come and go when they can. But I think that deal with the issue at hand, and then perhaps for a later discussion, decide what to do with it, what to do with the airport.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those,
You can't take any questions from the audience.
no, we're not gonna take questions, we have a comment though. Do you have a comment?
Yes.
Okay, if you would like to make a comment.
Mr. Ayer. Mr. Ayer brought up a good point when he said that they couldn't get an FBO up there. Is that what you just said, right?
That's what I just said.
Okay. Why? Has anybody, you're building hangars up there on the assumption that you can fill them with airplanes. How many people can afford an airplane around here?
There's a waiting list.
Huh?
There's a waiting list, Wilford.
There's a waiting list?
There's a waiting list.
Are the hangars full?
They're full.
Yes.
They're full.
All of them are.
Okay,
That
well,
doesn't mean we're going to build hangars, though.
well, how much money is that bringing in?
Okay,
Isn't that worth paying an FBO? Is that worth paying no, how much money is it bringing in? Is that worth paying an FBO?
no, Wilford, no.
It isn't.
We're not, it's not I really, we had a workshop session and
Yeah.
really.
I realize that, but we're talking about an entity that we don't need in this town, okay? We don't really need it. If a few people want to fly out of there, fine. I had an airplane up there once. It was a passing thing. Everybody did the same thing. You go to other airports and there's planes there all the time, but it's in areas where people can afford planes. You can't up here.
I understand the question, though. It's not about
Yeah.
doing anything with the airport now. Joan brought up a good point. It's not about the airport now. It's just about.
Well, if you got-
increasing
But if you got the
stipend.
hangars full, you said the hangars are full.
Reducing the stipend, not eliminating.
That's what I said.
Are the hangars full?
Reducing. Yeah.
The hangars are full.
Yeah.
They fly out of there every day, and
Not every day.
they need it in the wintertime. Or are they just parking their planes in there for the winter?
Wilford, this is about the stipend. I don't know. It's about. a
Well,
stipend.
I think before you go off on the deep end on this tonight, you better do a major study on the airport. It's an entity that I think if you think that there's a hell of a future up here for that airport, sell it. Put it up for sale. Let somebody run it,
Thank you, Wilford.
and we'll get taxes on it, okay?
Thank you.
Right now, it's just a drain on our taxes. That's all it is.
Okay. Thank you.
As far as Dave Willetta is concerned, that goes with the territory maintaining that up there. Okay? So,
Thank you. Dave?
So I'd like it be known that if you decide not to use my services, I'm fine with that. That stipend was something that was given to me for the added duties that was up there. And one of the couple of things that was not talked about, I should just mention, is it's not only put a NOTAM out for closing the runway while it's being plowed. It's runway conditions. If you decide to plow the runway and you plow it on Sunday and Monday a plane comes in and the runways are slippery and it was not reported with a NOTAM, the city of Caribou will be liable for that accident. So it's the responsibility that I'm talking about more than the most part. The other thing is with the fuel, it was not mentioned, and I would just like to mention it again. If you ever hope of having an FBO at that airport, you are going to have to maintain that fuel system. If you go 3 months with nothing in there, the fuel will, the Phillips 66, the supplier of our fuel, said that when you finally get an FBO, you will have to have someone come up from New York, do the inspections, and recertify that tank. As long as we keep it going, they're okay with that. It's when you stop. So if you're having a hard time to find an FBO now, which I wish you could find, it will be next to impossible to find an FBO once the airport is closed, or once the fuel tank farm is no longer usable without that inspection from a Phillips 66 inspector. The plowing is not done through Public Works. I don't know if Mr. Marker told you that. I'm the one that calls that person, but he is paid from an airport budget. I have nothing to do with the plowing other than manage that side of it. I'm the one that says, okay, it's time to come in. I'm the one that places all the NOTAMs. You will need someone to be certified in the NOTAMs. You'll need someone to be certified in the Tank Smart program from DEP. And you'll need someone certified for fueling and tank farms from Phillips 66. And along with that, the fire inspection. So there'll actually be 4 inspections for whoever you may find to take care of the airport. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Paul?
I want everybody to understand, this is not about running the airport. This is not about any of that. It's a managerial issue. It's not about running the airport. Fact of the matter is there's, and I get what Nicole's saying, but other people do other things, cut down trees on the road when they fall and everything else. I think that, I'm sorry, Dave, but you should have been delegated that as part of your job. That's 1 of 7, but just how it is.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands.
The motion was to
Delete
Take
it.
$8,000.
take $8,000.
Right.
So all those
Me,
okay, so I second it.
you seconded it. All those in favor?
Wait, say that again. To take $8,000 out of the budget? Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 4 to 3, it passed. Thank you. The next item was increase of $60,000. Whoa, where'd it go? Oh, to capital road projects for repairs to the River Road. No River Road Capital Reserve account currently has a negative $56,000 balance. There are $486,000 in the 2020 operational funds for general road maintenance. The chair will entertain a motion.
First, I'd like to, because that was I'd like to ask, on the 60,000 that you took out, something.
Oh, my tablet.
Oh, okay. Under the reserves for 486,000, are those reserves earmarked for anything? Or if anything happens to the road and it falls apart again, can some of that money be used?
That 486,000 is not in reserves. That's simply in the operational budget for 2020.
Oh, okay, yeah, it doesn't say reserves. But earmarked for something or just for general, so if the road falls apart and needs to be put back together again, is there money in there for that?
So within the Public Works Department, they have a very detailed system of being able to get to so many road miles every year in order to maintain the
Right.
overall system. That 486,000 is to continue with that program, maintaining the roads or doing the surface treatments. I recall the council talked about not doing chip seal next year, but adding additional asphalt overlay in some places. That 486,000 is just for that system maintenance side of things.
So
But
the
it's not earmarked for anything specific other than those roads that have been programmed for maintenance.
Right now, the road's working fine, and I hope it does, but in the spring, if we have something and it falls apart again, then where would any money come from to put it back together, to fix it again?
There's a small amount of funds still in the road project reserve account, but I think that's around well, I'll pull it up for you real quick. I can tell you it's less than $100,000.
Because my original request was to increase, to put this, it's not really increasing, you took it out of there, so I'd like to put the 60,000 back in to the account and use the one-time funds that we have coming to do that, because this isn't something that's ongoing expenses, it's a one-time accident that happened, and this would be good use for that, but I'd like to see that go, that we at least have some, we may not have to use it. This is going to be something that would probably just sit there, hopefully, and not have to be used. But there should be something there just in case that road falls apart again. It looks good. I don't think it will, but you never know. Oh, yes. So I would like to make a motion to put the 60,000 back into the River Road account.
Second.
Moved by Joan and seconded by Dave to put $60,000 back into the capital road repair line. Any comments or questions or anything? All those in favor? 5. Are those opposed? 2. Okay, thank you. Councillor Terrio again.
Oh, okay. I would advocate for this. The Nylander Museum has a chance to get a couple of Vista volunteers to work. I think it works out to full time for a total of $6,000 a year. So for this year, they would have 2 volunteers and they would have full-time employees. That's all it would cost the city. They have done an enormous job in bringing the Nylander back, what they've got there. They've got a lot of people going through there. I've seen that myself. I got like pages from Gail of all the things that they've done just in the past year or so, and I think that this is cheap labor, and I think that this would be good for the community.
Is that a form of a motion?
I would make a motion that we put $6,000 for the Nylander. For the Vista
And if I'm
volunteers.
not correct, once again, we're not adding, we're just putting it back into the original.
No, I think this is an addition.
It's an ad.
Yeah, there
This
isn't,
wasn't in
they
the
have
budget
no,
last year?
they've had no employees. They've had just volunteer labor.
Ooh, I misread that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've had no employees. They've had employees, but they've been Vista volunteer employees plus their board employees.
I believe the last time we had a curator at the museum was about 6 years ago.
Quite a long time.
So since then, it's just been volunteers that have been on the board that have kind of managed things.
Okay. You moved it and seconded it. We're up to discussion. Tommy?
Have we heard from the Nylander Museum how much money we've gotten in donations from the Nylander?
I don't know. I
This year it was about $900.
All year long?
Well, you have it.
For the Nylander Museum, $900 all year long? Between all the things that they have done, you're telling me people only donated $900?
That's what we're currently showing in the Nylander revenue account.
So, walk me through that process real quick. When people come in and donate to the Nylander Museum, where does that money go? Who accounts for it?
The council authorized the museum to retain that in a separate checking account, and it's being managed by the city.
Does it go into the revenue account, or does it go into a donations account for the Nylander Museum?
A donations account.
In a donations account, okay. And that is what so far this year?
That now, we're showing a credit of $2,000.
So we're almost there.
So what was the amount? 2,000?
$2,000.
Like,
And has that been taken out of? Has the Nylander board taken some out to run projects to
Yes.
do this? So, okay.
So-
I just think two positions or just one?
She said it was two.
So two full-time people, or
I think it's
It
full-time.
would bring a full-time employee on. Basically, it's
Two
this
part-time.
$6,000 is our match to those funds, which are bringing the interns in.
for 40 hours a week?
Right.
Two,
I believe it's only one full-time employee.
one full-time employee.
But two volunteers to make it up, I think, right? She told me there were two volunteers, I'm pretty sure.
There was this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So going forward, it would just be one full-time employee, and that's all they do for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year, except for holidays.
That's my
Basically,
understanding.
curate the Nylander.
Right. Under the direction of the board and the city management.
Okay. Yeah.
Jody?
does the $6,000 include everything? Workers' comp, Social
Yes.
Security?
And
I asked her that, and she
That
said
covers the whole amount.
everything.
because that's, again, it's basically being paid through the grant program. This is just our portion of that.
What if we,
Go ahead.
I don't know. We're cutting positions, and then this is a new position we're making, and I'm a supporter of the Nylander, and I am a supporter of the Nylander. I'd be more apt to maybe start smaller, maybe go for half of this. Something to that effect, it would be a little more appeasing to me. And then see how it works from there and build it. One opinion. So, I don't know how that will affect their matching the money.
To me, I'd like to have all of our ducks in a row before, because I just don't know enough about this. That's the problem. I mean, Jody brings up a good point. Work comp, Social Security, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, if we knew that, hey, this is what it's going to be, this is what it is, okay. But I don't know.
I guess I would have to apologize. I don't know all the details on that either at this point.
Yeah, so I can't do it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? One way to do this, then, would be to increase, that's not the motion, but would be to increase the contribution fund to $6,000. And once we got all the facts and figures for sure, we could transfer it to the Nylander
But that's
a month or two into the year.
that's dangerous in its own right, because what if they take those contributions January 20th and they, not saying that they would, but they just do something with it.
They have to get permission from the council to transfer them out of the contribution line to their line.
Correct? Is that correct? Didn't we make that a?
So, yeah, just to be clear, the Nylander board is different than the Friends, what was previously known as the Friends of the Nylander board, which has its own pot of money. This would be strictly for management under the city, and then not tied in or connected to the Friends of the Nylander board that has its separate pot of money.
Okay, forget I made the suggestion.
No, and I wasn't talking
Take it
about
off the
that. That's
board.
completely look, the Olaf O. Nylander Foundation is completely separate from the Nylander.
Right.
And I know that because I'm the president of the thing. There's money that's going into the Nylander from that foundation, including displays and other things that are in the works. This right here is simply city-owned Nylander, the board trickles down from there.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? The motion was made by Joan, seconded by Dave to add.
I did not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did not second.
I don't think we have a second yet.
I don't know that we had a second.
Oh, I jumped the gun.
Yeah,
I jumped the gun. My apologies.
if there's,
Joan made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You seconded, thank you. You got me out of a bad jam. All those, any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? 5 to 2, it passed. Counselor Smith, addition of $400 that is to go in, we were gonna, was it the
Economic Development TIF funds.
funds for the Aroostook Chamber of Commerce? Once again, I thought it was gonna go in their contributions, but my mistake. Jody, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, the addition of $400 in economic funds for the Chamber of Commerce in lieu of dues. At least we're making an effort. I don't know what would our dues amount be if we were to, I mean, we're not, they're doing things for us right now. I mean, they're still
Right.
serving us as we saw Lenise here recently.
They are still serving Caribou's businesses that are part of the chamber. We also provide a lot of in-kind service through the Recreation Department and Christina doing collaborative work with the chamber. So as far as what our actual dues would be to become a member of the chamber, we'd have to still meet with them and work that out.
I just a token.
Okay.
I can tell you that I spoke with her a couple weeks ago, and I asked her, because she had first told me that it's the dues for towns and cities are per capita. And she said Caribou, according to the population, may be around 5,000 or 6,000. And I told her at the time, I said, I think that's going to be a hard sell. And she said, well, she said, let's, we could meet. And she said, give us a figure of what you could do. And then she said, I'll tell you what I can do with that figure. Also, I had a question, is this comes out of the economic development funds or anything in TIF funds? Does this actually affect the bottom line of the expense budget? Wasn't this something that's not?
I would anticipate this would come out of the TIF funds.
The TIF fund.
Because it's essentially advertising dollars.
Right.
And the TIF funds can be used for economic development promotion.
Okay, so we wouldn't necessarily have to put that $400 in here as part of the budget thing, part of the budget works right now. Can't that come out of that TIF fund pretty much at any time during the year in order, if we meet with them and decide that we want to join the chamber or something?
It certainly could. I would prefer, if the council doesn't mind, to actually make a motion to make a donation to the chamber, because the past direction has been, we're not going to be a member of the chamber, we're not going to donate to it. And so
You wouldn't rather just have a meeting with her with a figure to just see where they would be with that? I looked at that. Boy, they've done a lot for Caribou without having a membership. That's all, I'm just, I'm, just one, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just wondering if there's an alternative way to do this so that you could have it and not delay passing the budget or whatever
we know that, looking at the anticipated TIF funds for the year, it's around $370,000. So we have our wish list of economic development projects we want to do with that money. And so if we say we want to put $400 toward the Chamber of Commerce, we would probably just take $400 out of a different project, probably additional funds going to the revolving loan fund. Just reduce that by $400 to pay for this, or reduce $400 from the blight fund. So it's.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to put it in the budget tonight this way to vote on?
And you wouldn't, but I would prefer
okay.
that the council say this money is going to go specifically to the chamber.
Where?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just the reason, like I said, 400, I guess it doesn't really matter if we can argue where it's gonna come from. It's gonna come out of some line somewhere, or economic development or TIF. It's just the point is, what I wanna make is that we can give them something to say, hey, we're on board, and maybe in the future, we'll do more or less.
Dave?
Well, I think it keeps it cleaner. When you set the budget, you're not supposed to spend any more than that. So if you're thinking of spending it, just put it in the budget. Then don't
Don't
spend
have
it if
to.
you don't want
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so, and that's why I thought it was going $400 into the contribution. If it was $1,000, then the other 600 could be made up through TIF. This was just a way to get the ball rolling about addressing the chamber. in mind. Okay,
My motion is
okay.
$400 into the budget.
Yep.
For that, and I'll leave it that way.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Jody. Motion made by Jody, seconded by Dave. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Wow. Okay. So we've gone through all the amendments. And it's done a little gazuntas in the budget. You presented this the last time. Go ahead.
If I might add, it would be a positive toward the expense budget. I told you that we've been waiting for Amera bills to come in so we have a better idea of our expenses coming into next year. Right now, we've reviewed our November and our December bills, so we feel comfortable where we're going to be next year. And right now, we can reduce our expenses by another $10,000 out of our Amera streetlight bill. And so I anticipate adding that as a reduction in expenses for next year, which will help offset some of this a little bit.
Okay. Dave?
Could we clarify that Jones River Road money will come from one-time funds? Is that, I don't think it was moved that way. Is that what you wanted?
Well, that certainly would be my preference, but as long as
Motion wasn't?
we did not say
That's
that. No,
that.
that's right. Yeah,
All we're adding to the expense line,
no.
as I understand.
That's the way I did it.
And that's the way it passed.
Mhm.
Okay. So, go ahead again. No, I'm just kidding.
Another item. So this is for the council to also consider. In preparation for this, we've been looking more closely at some of the capital projects again. Chief Susie and I discussed the use of TIF funds. His recollection was different than mine, so we went back and found the original document, and he was more correct than I was on this, in that the TIF funds that we've generated in the downtown area, the project plan for those funds includes $1 million going toward a future fire station, but it also says that those funds could be used to upgrade the fire station. Right now, there's about $50,000 in that line as a reserve, knowing that we have in the budget next year almost $215,000 in capital to look at the roof and the structural improvements that are needed there. If the council wanted to use that $50,000, which would be okay under the TIF project plan, toward that structural upgrade of the fire station, we could do that.
Okay.
The downside, if I might, is that where we, in the project, or the long-term plan is to accumulate $1 million toward upgrade and building a new fire station. You basically zero out that reserve account.
Okay. That would be a discussion for the next council to take up. Next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. So Chair will entertain a motion to accept the budget presented at the November 25th meeting with these amendments that passed.
Which is approximately a $57,000 increase.
We put 60 in just for the,
It's 62,400.
$62,400 for the increase.
Yep.
Mayor, before a motion is made to that effect, I'm sorry, before somebody makes that motion, there are some things in executive session later on in this agenda which could also affect that. And I'd recommend that we hold off on approving this budget until after those.
Really? I kept these people here this long?
So at 11 o'clock tonight, we're gonna.
We're gonna go into executive session and then come out and vote on the budget?
If you want to do that now, go into personnel.
Wow, okay.
There's not much left on here anyway.
I was heading for the grand finale. Okay,
Cigarette, so the number
So-
was 62.5 increase,
62.4.
62.4. And that includes the reduction of the 8.
Yep. That's the running tab.
okay. Well, fair enough. Thank you very much, council. I appreciate it. It was just an attempt to make it go as smooth as we could. There's 3 ways this could have gone.
South.
No. People could vote against this budget because it didn't reduce enough. People could have voted against the budget because it reduced too much. Didn't reduce enough. Could be somebody like me that just needed to tweak it a little bit, or you could be just totally for it. It could go one of 4 ways.
So do we have to table this until after?
Table it till after.
Yeah.
Chair will entertain a motion to table this item until at the end of the meeting.
So moved.
Oh,
He got it.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved by Tom, seconded by Hugh to table this till the end of the meeting. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 8B, discussion regarding urban and rural blight remedies. This was a group that was put together by the council to address an issue of blight from citizens within our community.
Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mr. Marker and Ms. Farron, good evening. My name is Paul R. Camping, and I live on the Grimes Road in Caribou. Mayor, back in April 22nd of this year, you created the Citizens Advisory Board for Residential, Rural, and Urban Renewal, and you appointed the following people to serve on it. James Soretto, who unfortunately had to drop out of the board halfway through for personal reasons. Timothy Ring, Jay Cam, Karen Rockwell, who is excused for tonight's meeting, Jessica Plord, who recently got married. Congratulations, Jessica. We now refer to her as Mrs. Sear. And myself, who you made the chair. So, tonight I'm here to officially submit to you our report. And I know there was some confusion early on about photocopying. I'd like to make sure that everybody has a report that looks like that. Okay. The first 21 pages is our report. We have appended 4 very important publications to the back of the report. I know there's a lot of reading here, but everything you ever wanted to know about blight and land banking is here, and probably a lot you didn't want to know. So tonight, I'm going to defer my comments to Jessica Sear. She has been waiting for this opportunity since we began. Mrs. Sear is very articulate. The passion and fire in her belly burns hot, and she really was a very productive member of our board. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Jessica to come to the podium.
Thank you, Paul. I know that I only have just a few minutes to present, so I'd like to focus on reasons on why it is so important to address blight. So what is blight? Blight is any land or building that is dilapidated, unsafe, or is an eyesore. As soon as our first discussion at our very first meeting, it was very clear to us that we have a blight problem in our city that continues to get worse over time. We quickly became aware of our surroundings in our daily travels, and we were finding examples of blight in almost every neighborhood. Keeping the status quo is just not an option. Why? Blight creates significant costs to a city and its residents. Blighted properties have a negative impact on property values, not only for the owner, but the surrounding neighbors. Blight decreases the quality of life of the residents who live near the property, and blight can contribute to a decline in population. When property values decrease, the city's tax revenue also decreases. Properties that could have been rehabbed if caught early on end up corroding to the point of disrepair and eventually have to be torn down. Blighted properties also put financial strains on city departments from involving the code enforcer, police and fire departments, the utility district. There are demolition and disposal costs and more. And blighted properties are a magnet for crime, and I think we've seen a lot of that in our town. Studies nationwide have shown a direct correlation. As properties continue to become vacant, a city's crime rate will also continue to increase. This is often referred to as the broken window theory. Once there are visible signs of disorder, such as a single broken window, it will lead to further crime, such as additional windows being broken, graffiti, squatters, and more. Blighted properties cause abundant health and safety hazards, including fires due to accumulated trash from squatters, faulty electrical wiring, and infestations by insects and rodents. As properties corrode, they can collapse, causing physical harm. These safety hazards are found in both vacant and occupied properties. For example, in 2014, a fire at an apartment building in Portland killed 6 of its residents. The cause? A landlord who let his property become blighted. There were multiple code violations and also numerous piles of trash on the front porch, which is where the fire started. Blight in a city can prevent economic development. A suitable place to live and raise a family is essential in attracting and retaining the type of individuals that drive commerce and industry. In your report, as well as the attached documents, you'll find numerous tools and action steps to attack the blight problem in Caribou. These action steps are discussed in great detail in our report, as you can see. But due to time constraints, though, I would like to mention just a few of the headlines of the recommendations. One of them being adopting the International Property Maintenance Code. Also, when selling a tax-acquired property, conduct a thorough inspection of all code violations and have the buyer sign a contract. It will require the buyer to bring the structure up to code within 18 months or face foreclosure. They will also not receive a certificate of occupancy until there are no longer any code violations. Also, require that all potential bidders on tax-acquired property must be current on their current property tax payments and not have any recorded outstanding code violations on any of the properties that they may own. This helps prevent that cycle. As you know, in our town, some of the people that have been bidding on these tax-acquired properties don't maintain them, and so they become further in disrepair. They get acquired by the banks and so forth, and it's just a vicious cycle. We recommend developing a fine or ticketing system for code violations. Have the city council review the workload of the code enforcer and building officials to determine how more proactive enforcement could be. Develop a housing rehab program for tax-acquired properties. Apply for community development block grants for the development and expansion of multifamily units. Apply for a CDBG planning grant to complete a local housing assessment that identifies unsafe homes for possible demolition and targets others for rehab. Participate in programs, grants, and projects to ensure affordable housing options for our elderly and our low-income citizens. And we strongly consider the creation of a land bank, and you can learn more about land banks in your packet. In closing, it is our hope that the council really take a stand against blight in our city. We need to stand firmly behind the effort and make it clear that the city will be enforcing higher standards for property conditions. Any questions?
Any questions from the council? Paul?
Do we have any locations of all the blight issues?
Well, we certainly have discussed many of those locations.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly can do a report of those. I know in your packet that is part of, we did some action steps for the city to do, and that would be one of them that falls within that department, is take an existing, find out and list all of those properties.
But
they
Ken,
are everywhere.
You got a list of different properties that are blight issues in this town, right?
We have a list of properties that we have action against right now. That's a working knowledge of where the building areas are.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll have questions after I
Yes, for your reading.
get through all this.
And that, any other comments?
I just have one, and that's, wow, good job. You've got a lot of work here.
The
You've
group
done
was
a
very
lot of work.
passionate about this
Yeah.
because it affects so many different areas, and it's important. As you know, we're just trying to keep the tax dollars,
Yeah, no, good job.
and it's
Thank you.
expensive. It's
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, no, very good job. Thank you. that's a lot of work here, and hopefully it'll produce.
Hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. Thank you.
Just one second, I want to thank you and the committee. As Councilor Hughes said, we're going to look at especially the summary page that you referenced here. Back when the committee was formed, I had heard different people throughout the community that talk to me about blight. So it is not just any one or two.
Right.
We're talking a substantial amount of people. I've been trying to work on economic development, and I've been trying to figure what would best increase our taxable valuation to our community. Increasing our taxable valuation is how we pay.
Right.
Having blight is what takes away
Right.
the funds that we have to invest in our community. I was hoping to merge your definition of economic development with a possible solution to our blight problem, and they would marriage together pretty darn good, I feel. But it's going to require some work and some understanding of what the next step for the solution is.
Right.
And I would hope that the committee and yourself and everybody, the council would meet for a workshop session on this specific issue right after the first of the year and get started on it. Because there are ideas out there.
Right, and in your report, you'll have clear action steps from something that the state of Pennsylvania had done all the research on. So they've worked countless hours, and it's all right there. And as we talked about during our first meeting, why reinvent the wheel where you can implement a lot of these action steps very easily.
Look forward to working with you and Paul and the rest of the committee and citizens. I hope will get behind us.
I hope so.
On it, which requires a little PR. But we'll talk about that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that I have been approached by numerous people when they learned about the Blight Committee to tell me stories of their own personal experience. And one of those gentlemen is here tonight, and he would like to speak on blight and caribou. His name is Mr. David Markham. I'm sorry. He's not related to you. Mr. David Waco. and he has a story to tell you too.
My name is David Wakeham. I'm a resident, longtime resident of Caribou. This is probably one of the most important things that this council can do, is take a hold of this thing and go with it. It's been going on now for 10, 12, 15 years, as long as we've had cheap interest rates, and people are buying these properties and renting them. I'm talking about just the absentee landlords. Now, I live 5 minutes from here on Reservoir Street. I can take you right now and show you probably 6 or 7 pieces of property they're a disaster. I have 2 right on the end of my street that we've been dealing with for at least 10 years. You know where they are, next to Muckler's Funeral Home. I have another piece of property on Spring Street, corner of Spring and Pool Avenue, up near Burger Boy. Everybody knows where that is. I've been a pest. You've been there. Scott, tell them what it was like when you went in there. They had to change their clothes when they went back to work that day. Penny will tell you what it was like. It's been going on. It's a wildlife refuge is what it is, really, be honest with you. I've killed a couple rats there, and it's still standing. And the fellow that owns that place is just playing you all. He knows what he's doing. And this is what we're faced with. It affects you, Huey. How many of these? Paul told me there's over 80.
Yep.
Huh? And you just had to ask for a 23 or 24% increase in utilities, right? You know, living next to these places or having them in your neighborhood is not fair to the property owners that take care of their property. It's just not fair. And you know, Mark, you're right. It's costing us all, we're all subsidizing this by increased taxes. And I hope that the council, all of you folks, take a good look at this and get serious about it, because it's not going away. And we're going to have to deal with it. It's actually growing. Foreclosures, banks have money. In this business, while we can't get a hold of them, mow their lawns, take care of garbage, you get squatters, fine them. I say fine them by the day. Add it to their taxes. You'll collect revenue after a while, and they'll clean them up one way or another. So I just hope that this group has done one heck of a job putting this together in the time that they've had to do it. And I just hope that this council takes a real hard look at this and attacks it. And it's going to take time, it's going to take money, and it isn't going to get done overnight. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. And I can assure you, talking to the councils at different points in time during the past year, we are serious about trying to do something with this. And right at the first of the year, it's right at the top of the list. Thank you very much. 8C, discussion possible action regarding the airport lease to the Civil Air Patrol. Dennis.
Mayor, I actually would, if you don't mind, defer to Councilor Ayer, who was the chair of the council's airport committee on this issue.
Last week, Joan and I met. Councilor Smith was.
It was at 10, not 1, right?
Yeah, it was at 10. Yeah. We met to discuss the Civil Air Patrol coming to the airport, and with crunching some numbers with Mr. Marker, Manager Marker, we came up with utilities, electricity, water, and all of that, and what it would cost for what little time the Civil Air Patrol would be at the airport. Came out to about $300 per year. We discussed how we're going to, how they're going to take care of the building and what happens when they don't take care of the building. We discussed basically from A to Z on their entire contract with us, the council and the city. Joan and I and Mr. Manager Marker recommend that we allow them to utilize the airport for the Civil Air Patrol and at $300 per year, and go forward with this this contract. Now, we also decided it would be for a 1-year contract. This is not a 5-year lease or anything. I know you've got the proposed lease is for 5 years. We want to do 1 year, see how it goes. If they live up to our expectations, then we can talk within another year. I also want to remind everybody that the airport is still city property, and allowing other entities to go into the airport without city approval cannot be tolerated, at least from the airport committee standpoint. Maybe the council feels different about that. However, it's our liability still. But it's our recommendation as the airport committee and as the chair that we go ahead with this $300 per year based on the anticipated utilities and usage of the building.
You.
Motion to approve based on Tom's recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Hugh, seconded by Joan, to go ahead with the recommendation of the airport committee.
Jane, it's right there.
Is that authorizing the city manager to sign it?
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded by Joan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Yes. Okay, item number 8B, discussion possible action regarding contracts for providing ambulance services, billing services to Callis and Patton. And was this the one we're gonna move to executive session?
For the fire and EMS services? Yes.
Eight B, providing ambulance billing services.
So that one, Mayor and Council, is a little more straightforward. We've been providing services to Callis and to Patton. And this year, we're just renewing the services and
And like to Island Falls as well.
at Island
Add
Falls.
extra staff, that would
Okay.
keep it just under one staff person.
Okay. The contract was reviewed in your last meeting as well. We would like to tighten up the contract, and the language that was previously presented does do that. It allows us to include language like how to get out of it and what the terms are that we would need to have as far as them providing information to us. The contract, it also makes it so that we're charging a fee based on submitted claims, not processed claims. The difference being that if they submit a claim and then they have to go back to them for fixing of errors or changing other things, we're going to be charging them a fee based on how many claims are submitted to us, rather than the previous contracts where whatever claims we went through the whole process on and actually got reimbursement for, then they paid us on those. So that's probably the most significant change in these contracts.
So, refresh my memory.
We currently are providing services for Holton, Island Falls, Patton, and Callis.
Recommendation at the last one was to remove Holton and Island Falls.
Right. And what I'm hearing tonight is
We can do Island Falls and not increase that, their volume is low enough that one person can. And that'll just increase our revenue side.
So, right now, the budget that's already been discussed is that we would have one full-time person and a part-time person that would continue to do ambulance billing. It's a reduction from 2 full-time people.
The last recommendation you did the Kazunthas for us, they haven't changed.
I haven't seen anything else. We can bring Island Falls back to you another night after I look at those numbers again.
This is a good suggestion, if you don't mind. Can we just stick with these two?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I shouldn't have said that. Is there any motion coming from the council? And the motion would be to authorize the city manager to sign contracts with Callis and Patton for ambulance billing services. Is that how
Did you want to include
Yes.
the dollar amount?
It's based on a
That's
a
right.
claim fee.
2245,
Chair will entertain a motion.
Each one of these contracts are separate with each town, right?
Yes.
There's no motion, Chair would entertain a motion to table if we could do that.
Motion to table.
Second.
Moved by Hugh, seconded by Tom to table this agenda item. Do you sense any problems?
Not with those two communities. We're already providing services to them, and the contract is even stronger in our favor as far as revenue generation goes.
Any comments or questions? Motion is to table this until the next, or sometime in the very near future. All those in favor? Motion carries. 8E, award of agricultural services related to the
Architectural, not our agricultural.
close.
That's
It
close.
started with an
Yeah,
A.
that's true.
Architectural services related to a new police. Listen, I'm not the brightest light bulb in the package.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Architectural services related to the new police station. Dennis.
Again, council, this was brought to you several meetings ago. At the council's direction, we went through a process of seeking architectural services to look at a new police station. And also, the scope of that request was to have an architectural firm or individual that was licensed as an architect come in and be able to evaluate a couple of existing buildings in the downtown that are currently vacant or would be vacant, and also to provide the city a basic footprint of if we were going to just build what would be considered a greenfield police station, what would that look like, and give us cost estimates that we could then take to the voters and have the voters vote on the total project. The initial responses that came back, we had a committee that involved council members as well as staff, and one of the citizens that was involved with the public safety committee, and it was whittled down to 3 firms to come back and be able to provide additional presentation materials and information to us. Those firms included Artifacts, DGC, who partnered with CES out of Presque Isle, and a company named Sealander out of the Bar Harbor area. Each of these firms came in, gave us an idea of how they saw the scope of the work, the project moving forward. They all did give us a cost estimate for the total work. At the end of the interview process and reviewing all the materials that were given to us, the selection committee looked at and recommended Artifacts be utilized. And really that was independent of the fee that they had proposed. We did recognize, though, that their fee was well over $100,000 for the initial scope of the project. I went and met with Ellen Angel, who is the principal of Artifacts. We talked about the scope of the project, what really were we looking to do here. Their understanding of the total project was that we were going to have an in-depth analysis on the older buildings, meaning people coming in, doing mechanical surveys, electrical surveys, and really bringing in a lot of technical expertise into those buildings. And I said, that's not the level of detail we want at this point. We want to still keep it fairly high level, but be able to get us some numbers that we can take to the public and have them vote on. And the additional details would come in a final design after the voters have said, yes, move forward with the project. So the current fee that Artifacts, they've returned back to me, and they said that they would be able to do this work with a cost not to exceed $41,520, which basically gets us through this very preliminary side of things. There would be additional cost for actual design of the building if it passes referendum by the citizens. And so we anticipated that these funds are currently in the budget, the drafted budget, and if the council would like to wait on approving this contract until the budget itself is approved, that would be appropriate as well.
Any questions to Dennis on the services? Hearing none, is there a motion on the table?
I would move to authorize the manager to sign the contract for agricultural services with Artifacts.
Architectural, not
Artifact.
agricultural.
Did I say agriculture? See? Architectural.
This is gonna turn into the flaky biscuits at Dysart's.
Great.
Oh, well. It's in a field. Didn't he say something about it being in a field? So.
That was a motion? Is there a second?
Okay.
Going once?
Going twice.
Twice? Moved by Joan. Seconded by Nicole. Any comments or questions?
And this is already baked into the budget from last for
next year.
For next year.
Right.
What happened to the money and everything that Port City did? Did they do any scope of the police department on that deal?
They did a study for us, and they looked at the amount of square footage that, from their analysis, that we would need. They looked at the different programs that we have and how that would need to fit.
Now we're doing it all over again.
Again, at the request of the council to put that service out for bid. We know we've done this. This would be the third round of somebody coming in. This will give us, one of the things that this committee, the selection committee liked about this is this consultant that's working with Artifacts is a nationally renowned person dealing with police stations and public safety. And so you know that based on all the other work that he's done across the country, that you're going to get the truth of what's necessary here. There's no question about do they really know what they're doing.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, remind me again now. Joan and then Nicole. All those in favor? Those opposed? 4 to 3. It passed. Okay. Okay. 8F, discussion and possible action regarding city manager's employment contract. I thought we were gonna talk about this in executive session. Okay.
Yes.
Number 9, reports and discussion by mayor and council members. Any council members have anything? Very good. Number 10, city manager's report.
Included in your packet is a summary of major projects and activities that we're working on. The Caribou Shopping Center, this is a new one for the council. I met with Mr. Dana Cassidy last week, and he's indicating that he's finalizing renovations of one of the tenant spaces there for a trampoline park. And the hope is that that would be opening up around the first of the year. And he'll have some more information for us when he's ready for that ribbon cutting. He's also indicated that he has a lead on another tenant who generates $10 million plus in sales each year and would like the city to help with some space renovation costs to accommodate the new tenant, which I anticipate talking more about with the council in executive session tonight under real estate and economic development. As far as the Skyway Plaza, we've reached out to the State Economic and Community Development Office to discuss an extension of the downtown TIF to help out with another tenant and retention of a tenant in the downtown area. And we're still waiting to hear back from them on that process. It does appear that the downtown TIF is at its statutory limit, so we may have to just create a new TIF district to be able to extend that. But I'll be working with the state to finalize the details on that.
Question on the TIF, I guess. So it's not up to the council to create the TIF? This has to be done through the state?
The state requires that you can't have a TIF over 30 years in length. And this downtown TIF district is already set at that maximum amount of time frame. The tenant that we've been talking about would require the TIF to be extended beyond the 30-year horizon of the TIF. And so we'll have to, if we want to work with this tenant, we'll have to also look at, if we can't extend it, do we create a new one and basically put it over the top of this one to make that work. Okay. We're continuing to work with Porvair on their CDBG grant funds, and they've been able to already go out and get bids for the purchasing of their equipment, which they indicated would be necessary for job expansion with them. Under the blight cleanup, the asbestos has been removed from the 2 homes on Liberty and York Street. I believe we still have an excavator on one of the sites.
Excavators on site on Liberty Street. I think our contractor's chasing snow now.
So
they're on site to tear that down.
While they can work in the snow, we'll expect most of that work is going to pick up again in the springtime. With the bird's eye cleanup, the application for the EPA funding was not completed. It was due December 3rd. As I was able to get into more of the details of that grant and the strings that were attached to it, one of the things was that we had to basically fully redevelop and reuse the site within 3 years of getting the grant. And they want to know when you've applied for the grant that you already have developers, contractors basically in the queue ready to make things happen. We're not there. So the hope is that over this next year, again, looking at the issue of blight and other things, we start to work more in a more detailed manner about the bird's eye site and beginning to reach out and look at the future of that property. The Regional Transportation Collaborative Program has met a couple of times now, and they're moving forward with that. The Hilltop Senior Living Center is still ongoing work up there. Holiday events are in full swing as far as events and marketing. We have, Christina, do you want to just touch base quickly on what you've got?
Yes, this past weekend, sorry, my voice is awful. We did 262 gingerbread houses with community members, and we did 318 gingerbread cookies. We had a huge turnout. The tree lighting was really well attended as well. That was new for us. And then the holiday shop for kids, we had a great turnout as well. So all good. I've heard all good things. That's kind of it for 2019 as far as events go. But yeah, it's a good year.
Just to also make the council aware, at the library on the 11th, the library is going to be hosting a Santa and story time at the library for the kids. And also on the 19th is what's the name of the band?
George and Friends is doing a concert, which they now informed us today. Mr. George Allen came in, and they anticipate possibly 20 vocalists, in addition to, they normally have about 6 people with different stringed instruments, but we now have some 8, 9, and 12-year-old violinists that really want to participate. They saw it advertised on Facebook and went to their violin teacher and said, please, can we participate? So we had to move it from upstairs in anticipation of the number of people both performing and attending to the Caribou Room downstairs. That was this afternoon. We have Christmas slime and story time. We have all different kinds of holiday events going on at the library this month. So trying to keep that spirit going.
The other Title 13 rewrite is still on hold. We'll pick that one up. It's, again, part of the budget, or not the budget process, but looking at the blight process and the process of getting properties cleaned up. Title 13 is part of that. Dunkin' Donuts is open for business and seems to be doing really well, so we'll take that one off of the list of economic projects. Other issues that we're dealing with, obviously the budget, union negotiations, we'll talk some more about that tonight. The fire and EMS structural study, that is currently in the budget for next year, and so that's on hold till that is finalized. 60 Access Highway, we're still, it still is listed with the Realtor, and we have one interested buyer. As far as I know, negotiations have kind of stalled on that. I don't have any new information on that one for you. The cable franchise renewal, I talked with Spectrum directly. The indication is that they'd be very willing to sit down with the city, essentially take the consultant out that we hired to help us with that, and they would sit down with us and we'd work through it and be able to come back and work through that and bring it back to the council another time. So we'll be working on that here very soon. Other major projects, pretty much on hold until we get major budget items out of the way, and moving forward, the LED conversion, as I mentioned, we'll be able to see a reduction from that. We anticipate there will be an additional reduction in our streetlight power bill next year when Emera applies the LED rate to our streetlights. Currently, they've only applied the private ownership or government ownership rate, but the LED rate will have further decrease in the power bill. So we don't know how much that savings will be, but it will be a savings in the budget next year. Any questions about any of the other items?
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Number 11, reports of officer, staff, boards, and committees.
We are working on tax clubs right now, and they will be sent out in the mail shortly. There's well over 200 of those, so it is a process to get them done. Dog licenses are due. We've only done around 300 dogs. There's like another 1,000 out there that haven't been done. Please don't wait till the last moment. Remember, any dog that is licensed by the end of December, they'll have their dog tag put in a drawing for a gift certificate to the vet of their choice, then get to be the poster dog for the city of Caribou for the next year. So Thor is the poster dog this year. He's owned by Peter and Winnie, is it Freeman? And also volunteers are needed for the citizens boards that we have. Those appointments will be made January 2nd at the organizational meeting. And applications for the citizen board is available in the city clerk's office. Please come out and support your community by serving on a board. And we've got like 3 on the planning board, don't we? 3 openings on the planning board. So that's all I have.
Anybody else? Okay. Before we go into executive session, did you have anything else? We have to discuss about the next city council meeting. How did you want to do it?
Some of the items that Mayor, you and I had talked about are not going to be ready for the 23rd. One of those was a discussion with the council about moving certain funds from one account to another account to kind of close out the books at the end of the year. In reviewing the projections for revenues and expenses, we're going to be pretty close to not having any real funds that we can be maneuvering around, but it also wouldn't be appropriate really until the end of the month when we know for sure what we have to be able to come back to the council and say what we might have ability to play with.
Is this something that has to be done in the calendar year?
According to our finance department, they're not going to be actually closing the books until around January 13th, just for doing month ends. And so the council could, in their first meeting, be able to say, we recognize we had these expenses and we have these reserves or additional revenues. The council could move those within this budget year, even though it would be an action taken in January.
Does any counselor have any issues with doing that? Any other issues coming up that have to be taken care? I am working toward not having any more meetings. Any other thing that you can see coming that has to be? We can always set another meeting, but as of tonight, when we leave, is there anything else that you know of that's on the agenda that has to be addressed this year?
Not that would be pressing on the city's case.
Then I'm going to say that as it stands tonight, we're all going to go home and enjoy our families and enjoy the holidays after tonight. We're going to come out of executive session and vote on the budget. Does anybody have any problem with that? Any issues? Like I said, we can always set one up.
Mayor, along those lines then, would you like to?
I will. We've had the privilege, the city of Caribou's had the privilege and honor. I left my speech home because I didn't know this was going to be the last night. Of having Dave Martin serve this community. And although I am very admired by his philosophy, his steadfastness, is willing to fight for what he thinks will make this city a better place to live. And he's to be commended because he hasn't wavered one bit in the entire time that I've known him. And if there's anything I can say about Mr. Martin, he believes it. And that's a good trait. And from the bottom of my heart, it's something to be admired. He's to be respected, I think, I know, for his service to education. I've talked to enough people, students who admire him. He's to be respected for his community service that he's given to this community. But once again, I give you, sir, the most respect for your ability to stay true to your philosophy and beliefs. And it's to be commended. And
Thank you.
You've given it a heck of a good deal. I hope that you and your wife enjoy the winter, you'll be able to participate still. In token of appreciation, Dennis went and got you a clock.
Oh.
The time you spent on the council.
Yeah, because he knew probably that I wouldn't show up in January for any presentation.
The council has gotten together and we have purchased a $100 gift certificate for your wife. And if she so chooses to take you out to dinner
Really?
with her, that would be up to her.
If you see me alone somewhere, that's because she's out with friends.
We've had our differences, pal. We really have. But I can tell you right now, I admire the way that you stayed steadfast to your beliefs, and it's a true credit to our community to have people like you. I want to thank you very much.
No.
I did give Dennis 1 point for corny on the clock.
Mayor, do you want to take that out? Mayor, do you want to take it out?
Who's going to read it, though?
No, that'll work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Let's try number, is there anyone in executive session? Scott's here, so
Nice.
let's do the fire and EMS services first, which would be a contractual deal, which is 405.6.
Second.
Moved by Connie, seconded by Jody. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
I have some signatures.
Nope, I think she gets her. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, she said we do.
I